adversity as a state or instance of difficulty or misfortune. So in simpler terms, that just means like a hardship or a challenge. So if you were to put this into a better sense of perspective, it could be like the goalie standing in front of a goal, or the linebackers and cornerbacks in front of the end zone, or the Brussels sprouts on your dinner plate. And if we relate this to real life, it could be this may be in the form of like the death of a loved one, or a tragedy, or a really big test. All of these, of which are things that deter us from a path of success, or kind of, I guess, mess up our lives when they seem to be going very well. At least, that's what we think. I think a lot of us are in the mindset that adversity is something that is supposed to tear us down and to, harm us and destroy us. But as I've, experienced the past few years, I've seen adversity in a new light. Not as something to tear me down and destroy me, but something to strengthen me. And I'm hoping that you all will see that as well. Okay, so I see myself as a woman of faith. I've grown to love and appreciate God and just try and grow closer to God based off of the fact that I've had a very fortunate life and lived a good life, and so I'm very thankful for that. And it's not just going to church and reading the Bible and praying, but just trying to be a good person overall. At least that's what I try to do in my day-to-day life. But during my sophomore year of high school, I realized that something was off and something wasn't clicking. I often found myself struggling with intrusive thoughts, intrusive meaning unwanted or unpleasant, and they were things that constantly went through my mind. So as I just told you, I'm a woman of faith, and so the things that were going through my mind were, I have images of me, stabbing Jesus, stabbing my friends and family, hurting my family members, like images of Satan stuff going through my mind, and the idea of me hating God and things like that, and as someone of faith, it's like you're not supposed to have these thoughts. So why these thoughts were going through my mind, I wasn't exactly sure, and it was something that I struggled with. And I don't know if you all remember, but last year we had a lot of snow days and stuff, and I spent a lot of time by myself, and my dad was at work. So while I had all these thoughts, when you're by yourself, that's when your mind starts wandering. And so these thoughts were coming and coming and coming. And so in my mind, I was like, to make these thoughts go away, I had to perform certain habits or, like rituals. So I would tell myself, I love God, or I would pray all the time. I would, read my Bible more. I even sent like crosses to all my streaks, and sometimes would even slide Jesus into a conversation I was having with my friends. I even drew crosses on my papers when I would turn them in and stuff. Anything to assure me that my relationship with God was still there, and that I was okay and I wasn't going crazy. And so I struggled with this for, I think it started the beginning of sophomore year, and it lasted until March of sophomore year, so about 5 to 7 months. And so after I told my mom, and she was able to realize what I was going through, she saw it because I was also shaking my head and stuff because I didn't know what was going on. She took me to a Christian therapist, and I found out that I had scrupulous OCD. And so basically what OCD is, scrupulous meaning religious, what OCD is, it stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. And so it's caused by an imbalance in your brain chemicals. And so essentially someone with OCD will have a recurring thought, and it's something very unpleasant that keeps coming and coming and coming. And to satisfy that thought, they have to perform a certain habit or ritual to make the thought go away temporarily. So for example, if I came into school every morning with a thought, the school was gonna burn or the school's gonna catch on fire. So to satisfy that thought, every 10 minutes, I'm gonna go out in the hallway and touch the fire alarm. I'm not gonna pull the fire alarm, I'm just gonna touch it. So in my mind, every 10 minutes, I have to go outside and touch the fire alarm, because if I don't, the school's gonna catch on fire, and if the school catches on fire, we're all gonna die. So that thought keeps running and running and running through my head. And it's not because I want it to, it's because my brain chemicals are in balance. And so I was struggling with these thoughts in a religious sense, and that was something very difficult for me. That played a factor into my schoolwork and stuff. My grades were dropping, and I just didn't know what was going on. So after a while, my Christian therapist recommended that I start fluoxetine. Fluoxetine is an SSRI, which stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And what it does is it increases the amount of serotonin in your brain, which essentially allows your brain chemicals to be back in balance. So after I was on that for a month, you know, the thoughts subsided and I was back to normal. And so I know that was a lot, but what I'm saying is, you know, that was an experience that was extremely difficult for me and very hard for me to deal with. You know, for those of you who aren't religious, you know, think of yourself, you love your family, you love your friends, so when you're constantly having thoughts of you wanting to do harmful things to your friends, you know, that, you know, kills you. And I felt a lot of anxiety and guilt from these thoughts. But after going through this experience, I learned a few things from going through that hardship that I'd like to share with you all. Okay, so the first one of those things is I want you all to see adversity as like the hard way to learn a lesson, so like a hard-learned lesson. So essentially it's kind of like peeling an orange. You have to get through the hard part of the orange in order to reap something sweet on the inside. So like when you go through something hard, it may be difficult, but I think you end up learning something about yourself, or, you know, getting a new sense of strength or a new skill that you probably didn't have before you went through that experience. It's like putting a new tool in a toolbox. The second thing I want you all to realize is that, you know, when you've been through something, just understand that you getting through that is a success. I mean, I know a lot of us feel like, you know, we're not allowed to cry, or we're not allowed to be depressed, or we're not allowed to be sad when things, you know, happen. You know, sometimes we pick up bad habits, you know, like sometimes we deal with our problems by, you know, drinking or smoking or doing whatever. And while those may not be good ways to deal with that problem, you know, that's the way that you cope with things. So just the fact that you've gotten through it, even if you did pick up those habits along the way, you know, you still succeeded because you got through that experience and because you didn't give up. So just understand that getting through the experience, no matter how you have to get through it, is a success in itself. And the last thing I want you all to realize is that everything comes to pass, and literally, like, nothing lasts forever. So, you know, more specifically, like hard times, like you may have a test, you know, coming up. You know, we have AP testing and SATs coming up next week, but like 2 months from now, that's not even gonna matter. So all the stress you have building up, you know, to those tests, like, it's not even gonna matter because it's gonna be, you know, gone. So I'm not saying that, you know, it's not okay to mourn or to be upset or stressed when you're in a difficult situation, but just understand that, you know, it's not gonna last forever, which is why you shouldn't give up. So once again, what I want you all to realize is that adversity is something not to destroy you or to defeat you, but to make you stronger. And I'm hoping that you will see that as you experience more challenges and difficulties throughout your lives. Thank you so much.